Sounds good.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Spirit Rescue Talk. I'm Amy Major, and I have an amazing guest. We have Reverend Brenda Knight here with me today, and we're going to be discussing quite a bit of her stories, her experience, and I'm sure some of the experiences are quite unique, and I'm really excited to hear about them. So hello, Brenda.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for asking me to join you.
I'm really excited to have you here. I really am, because I've known you for a few years now.
Yes.
And you've had some very unique experiences since I've met you.
I have.
And I'd love to hear about some of them. But before we get into that, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got to where you're, what you're doing, and the expertise that you have? We know that you're a rescue medium, and I know you do attachment removal work, but what kind of led you into this? What's the story?
Well, I started doing energy healing initially, and then doing spiritual healing, doing a lot of different types of different modalities. I'm a hypnotist. I'm also instructing hypnosis, doing a lot of past life regression. So I'm kind of already knew about entities and what was happening when they die. So I've been doing a lot of research on that. But what really got me into it initially was when my granddaughter was 8 years old. She was seeing ghosts in her house. And she called me one day and said, "Grandma, there's a woman and a little girl and a big, very large man, a black man, standing at the end of my bed." So I went over to her house and I connected with the three spirits and found out that they had been in Northern Virginia when the woman had been married to a captain of the Union Army, and he was being called to duty. So he had asked his wife and the man that was the black man that was with him was actually his overseer, his friend. He had come from a plantation in Georgia, and the man had grown up with him. So when he left home, he wasn't like number one in the family. He was second or third son. So he had to go find his own way in the world. But he brought the man with him, and he'd been with him ever since. So they were very good friends and very close, and he trusted him. One day, the captain had come home to his wife and child and said, "We need the pack, and you need to get out of here." She was from Pennsylvania. So he said, "I have to leave immediately. They called me to duty, but I'm afraid of what's going to happen because there are a lot of Southerners around here, and I'm afraid for your safety." So he said, "I need you to pack and minimal, just leave." Well, they started to pack, but the daughter got sick and she died. Well, actually, she did. Of course, they all died, but the neighbors had come to the house because the girl was sick. They hid in the basement. There was a cellar, a root cellar, and they hid in the root cellar thinking the neighbors wouldn't bother them. But the neighbors set the house on fire. They were so angry at this northern captain and their neighbor. And so all three perished, and that's how they died. I've since connected with each of those spirits, from the captain to the mother and the daughter, and even the overseer, and have come with a lot more story. But that kind of, while I was at her house, I also sent them to the light, and not knowing what I was doing, but I know they went. I just felt it within myself. Didn't think much about it until maybe 5 years ago. Another friend called and told me that he had been visited by something was in him and bothering him, and a ghost in his house. So we started working together at talking to this man who was there, and we ended up just kind of fumbling our way through it, but together we got him into the light. And then all of a sudden, different things. People just kept coming to me, and it was like it opened a door. So I started doing this on my own.
So
And then,
you picked up on all of this from the get-go. Did you know that you were a medium when this child was seen?
yes, I did. I
Oh,
didn't know I was a rescue medium, but yes, I was a medium.
how
And
long have you been doing the work before that experience actually happened? I mean, has this happened since you were a kid?
no, when I was a kid, I used to always see this huge man standing in the doorway at night when I was trying to sleep. And he just had this awful look on his face. He looked very stern. Found out later he was one of my spirit guides, that he was helping me. I was 4 years old at the time, so I was really frightened, didn't know what was going on. Couldn't sleep without a light on anymore after that for long, many years. But then I started attending a spiritualist church. And I knew I was going through a time in my life I felt I knew I needed to get closer to God in some way. But it was hard for me to find a church in my vicinity that one believed in angels, another believed in past lives. And so I visited all of the, from the Catholics to the Baptists to the Methodists and churches to see, what was available. Well, one day a friend of mine had called and had told me about this spiritual church. It was actually the Institute for Spiritual Development in Northwest DC. And I went to church with her one time because she said, well, we believe in angels and we believe in past lives. And they actually give spiritual readings after the meeting, after the session. And I said, oh, can I go? And she said, yeah. So I went with her once and she never went back, but I continued for 7 years and took classes twice a week. So that's where I really developed my mediumship. And I just kind of did it on my own. I wasn't charging or anything like that. It was interesting to me because I was actually working at the Federal Reserve and I was a database administrator doing numbers. It was so far out, and I've always been interested in esoteric sort of things. So for me, it was the perfect scenario. And it wasn't, I was even working with a group of friends who we were planning on opening a wellness center in the US Virgin Islands on St. Croix. After I retired, we were going to do this, but it ended up not working out. But that's where I met several friends. And my one friend in New York that kind of got me started in this, that's where I met him 20 years ago. And we just kind of stayed in touch. But ever since then, he and I have been very close. But he had called me because he said he had a ghost in his house. And I knew that he could see people and he talked to people. It wasn't my thing initially, really. But I found I could connect with him, with the spirit. I just set the attention and then connect. And I did. And I can talk to them. I can see them. I really had, it kind of surprised me, actually. So it was kind of,
In the
just
spiritualist churches, did anyone ever talk about ghosts or earthbound spirits, or was it all really focused on just spirits in the light?
I've heard people talk about them, hitchhikers, they've been called all sorts of things, but I'd never really experienced it until then. And it kind of scared me, especially even the thought of thinking about ETs scared the bejesus out of me. I have been wanting nothing to do with them.
Wow.
But since that first session and sending the earthbound to the light, I've seen all sorts of things. It's been kind of crazy. And then I was meditating one evening and I would say something. I asked who it was and it was told me God, which I kind of confuse myself sometimes. Sometimes I think it's Melchizedek, but I'm not really sure. But they told me that they wanted me to do this work and that they chose me because of my purest heart of unconditional love, which I always give, and I try and stay in that mode as much as I can. So I went, okay. They told me they would give me a spirit team, helpers, and that the helpers would protect me. I would have nothing to be afraid of. So that's exactly what happened. I started working with the spirit team, and one was Melchizedek himself. And with him, I call it a group of warriors and a group of healers. And then there are archangels. There are 3 archangels that I generally work with. And also, for a long time, my brother came, who is now in spirit, and he was working with me. He's mostly just watching my back more than doing much, but he was there. So when I wasn't afraid anymore after that, I knew I was protected.
Sounds like you had an army with you.
I had an army with me. And I actually also work with extraterrestrials. They help me quite a bit. When it's a really hard case, they help me.
Wow. Now, this would be
especially
a
the
hard
extra-
case with an earthbound, or would this be a hard case with something maybe not so human?
More extraterrestrial and lower spirits. Yeah, but it's more the extraterrestrials. They're there with me.
Do you have a story of how the extraterrestrials started working with you? Like, what made you know that they were them?
Well, one thing is, I sense the spirits that are helping me and around me. There are different, I feel different places on my face, just a slight pressure, almost like a little wind or something. And I will generally call them in if I know there's an extraterrestrial, but sometimes they're just there. Especially, I have what I call it, it's a trigonic crystal. And this trigonic crystal also connects with extraterrestrials. And when I use that, I just feel like the power is just in me. It's a strange thing to explain, but it's just a sense that they're there. And they're usually the Arcturians, sometimes the Palladians, but mostly the Arcturians work with me.
Now, have they made any indication that you are also possibly a starseed, which is why you connect them so well?
Yes, I am an Arcturian.
That's why you do what you do.
I think that's right. And it's been a very interesting experience. I never know when I'm going to start with someone who's going to be there or what's going to be there. But I'm able to easily just scan and hone in on whatever attachment is there in the body.
Right. Well, I know that you had spoken a little bit about your friend from New York and his experiences. Are there any stories you'd like to tell about that?
I have one with him. And he called me because he said, I need you to scan me because I feel like I've got an attachment. I hugged my cousin, and after she stopped hugging me, I felt like she left an attachment with me. And so I connected with him. I found that there was a big, dark glob of energy within his body. And this glob of energy was sending out tentacles throughout his body, through his nervous system, just trying to get a feel. It was like a network of tentacles. And I removed the dark glob. And as I started pulling it and getting it out, I noticed that the tentacles weren't in that far with him, not yet anyway. So next I went to his cousin that hugged him, and she had the same dark glob. So I started pulling it out of her. But then my spirit helpers told me that this is propagated from her ex boyfriend. So I went to him and started pulling out the glove, but the tentacles were really very heavily embedded within him. So it took me a while to get all of that glob and those tentacles out. And I asked him, where did this come from? Or I asked the attachment. And he told me that it was from a master. I think he used the word sorcerer, which I'd never heard in this context before. He said he's very old. I've never met him, but he's very powerful. And what he does is he puts these attachments on people, connects to them, and then when they hug or touch somebody else, then they get that attachment. So it kept propagating over and over again. So I felt like I needed to do something. I followed the ex-boyfriend's strings all the way back through 40 people that he had connected with. When I got to that 40th person, I finally found out that this was a really old soul. Old, well, I don't say so, but that this person was trying, he wasn't taking energy from the people that he was propagating with. He was trying to get the feel for the human emotion, what their thoughts were, what they do, different scenarios like that, trying to get the human psyche. So I followed that back to this initial person, soul. And I had my spirit team with me, of course. But as I got close to it, I felt this overwhelming dark sense. And it was very strong, was just pulsing. So my spirit guides then told me he's tired. He's been doing this a long time and he's tired, so work with that. So when I approached him, I should probably say, when I work with removals, I always show myself as unconditional love. Mm-hmm. I'm glowing in gold light and I'm unconditional love because I don't want to act as though that I'm there to destroy them. I'm there to help them. So I told him, I said, we're here to help you. And I understand you're tired. And he said, yes, I am. But I said, are you ready to cross over? And he said, I don't know yet. So I had to talk to him a bit and explain to him about the process of, okay, when you died, you didn't cross over. Something dramatic must have happened that stopped this process. Can you tell me what happened? Mm-hmm. He said he was 13 years old. And he was, now the man, I will say first, he was 3,500 years old. That's how long he'd been doing this in spirit form. He was 13 years old. He was working for his father. His name was Pip. I remember that. And the father was a farmer. He owned his own land. He was respected. And that he was on his way to take produce to the market, his father's stall at the market, which he did every week. And all of a sudden, the ground started shaking and the mountain started spewing all this ash and everything was covered. He said, I just couldn't breathe. And I died. I was very angry. I didn't want to die. I was so young. I had plans. And I just became angrier and angrier and angrier. He said, I stayed away from all of the other earthbounds, stayed to myself. And this dark, what he said was this dark wizard had approached me to be his apprentice because he knew I was so angry and that I would fit very well into what he was doing. So I agreed. And he said, over the years, I become more powerful than he, and I destroyed him. And I decided at that time, I wanted to take over the humans, all humans. But first I had to learn everything I could about them. And that's why I set up this propagation of from human to human to human through touch, so that I could learn all of this. And I said, but I see you weren't taking their energy. He said, no, I get my energy from other sources, but not from humans.
Mm.
And he said, it's worldwide. This whole thing is worldwide. So we just kept talking, and he finally told me that I explained to him, I said, you know, when you die and your soul fragments, the fragmented soul is here, but the rest of you, probably most of you, is still on the other side. You can cross over. All of your family, everyone that you knew that was here when you were alive, and when you were 13, they've been waiting for you for a long time, and they really want to see you. And so he finally decided to go. He finally did cross over. And one thing that my spirit guides, or the spirit team, told me was that once he left, all of these other dark energies that he had propagated were just going to dissolve away, this whole network, because he was there keeping it all together.
Mm-hmm.
It was only him, through all of his ability, that was keeping it together. So once he left, that it would all be gone. His whole network would fall apart and just dissolve.
Wow.
But that was the freakiest probably thing that I'd experienced, and I'd only been doing this maybe a month, I think.
Oh, of course, because they have to
Just like,
into the deep
where does
end.
this come from?
Now, do you think that because he had been earthbound so long that he had forgotten what it was like to be human?
He did. He had forgotten. And because he was into the darkness for so long, he just didn't even think he could cross over at that point. I don't think he even thought about it.
Mm. Well, they become consumed with whatever it is
Yes.
holding them back, that they forget that there's somewhere to go. They forget
Yes.
that
Mhm.
there's something other than that existence that they're swimming in. Now, I know a lot of people probably don't realize, because they don't know a lot about the earthbound state, but if you know any information about this, about other spirits influencing other earthbound spirits, such as hostage situations, or like you
Mhm.
said, that wizard or that dark energy influencing this earthbound spirit to do all of this work, people don't realize they have conversations with each other and can really harm each other in that way. So
Yes.
is there any knowledge you'd like to share about, such as that influence that earthbound spirits can do?
Well, actually, this man, spirit, had actually enslaved many, many, many earthbounds. And it was those earthbounds that he was sending to attach to the humans. But even aside from that, I was speaking to a client one day, and she was telling me, you have to help the earthbound spirits that have been enslaved. And I said, what do you mean? I'd never heard of that. I didn't know what she was talking about. And she said, there are many, many, many that are enslaved. So I told her I would see what I could do. I connected, sent the intention out, connected, and I saw this huge corral in my mind, this huge corral of people that were just enslaved by this other master. And this one was 6,000 years old. He had been around and earthbound for a long time. So I told them that I would come back, and I would help them and move them towards the light if they wanted to. And I did that for night after night after night. And I said, just spread the word that I'm coming, and I will be here such and such a night, and if you're here, I will help you cross over.
Mhm.
And I would do that with a big group of people. And I would just tell them all that I'm here. I was sent by God to help you cross over, to get away from this. And if you are ready to cross over, then I will help you. If you're not quite ready to cross over, then God has created a safe place for you to go until such a time as you're ready. But you'll be out of and away from this. So what I would do was, I would say, look in front of you, and you'll see, it depending on what the age was, I mean, I guess, but you'll see a wooden platform in front of you. You'll see a platform. Just step onto that platform, and on that platform, you'll see a white light. And I would extend that white light all the way down to the end of the platform. And sometimes it might take 3 or 4 rows of doing this to get them. But I said, once you step into that light, you're going to see an angel. He's there to help you, to guide you, to take you where you need to go on the other side. So just let him know if you're ready to cross over. And if you're not, then just tell him you want to go to the safe place. And they'll take you there. But it's your choice, and you have to let the angel, this guiding angel, know that. And that was how I started doing it, doing the big groups of people. And the same thing kind of happened even with COVID. And you're looking at the news, and all these people were dying. They had no places in the mortuaries for them. But you know that these poor souls were earthbound. Many, many were. So I did the same with them for months and months. I started going from like New York to London to all over the world, to where for some reason I thought, the earthbound plane can't be that big. I mean, I'm going to be in one place. And you just spread the word and tell them to come. I'll be there on Monday and Thursdays or something. And that's the way I did it then, because it was just too much to try and travel around the world to help souls
Right.
doing the groups. But it was just something that I ended up doing. I knew nothing about, I knew less, let me say that, since I hadn't had your training yet in what I was doing. But it happened to work.
By trying to get some of these souls to cross, did you ever find that in these hostage situations or slave situations, that the earthbound spirit or entity keeping them hostage would have fought back or not allowed you to take it? Would you have found any animosity or threat from them?
I didn't. I envisioned us being far enough away from him at the time that I did it, or her. And it was usually a him, not a her. But then in the end, I ended up going to the person who was holding everybody hostage, like I did with the first one who was propagating all of this with the humans, and talked to him. And finally, after 15, 20 minutes of talking, got him to agree to cross over as well.
Well, that's not very long for 6,000 years of earthbound.
Yeah, it felt like a long time to me when I was trying to get him going. It might have been longer, but I'm thinking in my mind that's how long it was.
They must have been weary and probably looking for an excuse to go at that.
Generally, that's what I found when they've been very old like that. They're tired. And it's their ego keeping them here, not anything else.
Right.
But I just try to explain that the soul needs to soar. And it can't while it's in earthbound. It can't learn, it can't grow, it can't be all it can be. And I know that sounds probably a little cliche, but sometimes some of them you really have to talk to them and convince them that. But I've never, it's only been twice that that's happened to me. where they've enslaved others and I've had to then move them over.
Right. Do you find that most earthbound spirits usually cross within a certain time frame? Like obviously 6,000 years is very long. And I
Mhm.
know that the way I've been taught is the longer they've been earthbound, the greater chance they have of dealing with their baggage and being able to change their consciousness enough to finally make that decision to go, usually through the influence of other spirits or the physical world around them. But
Mhm.
find there's an average time or length that you see earthbound spirits staying behind?
Um, I haven't gotten to that, and it's probably because I offered them the safe place.
Hmm.
I told them it's safe. It's a place where you can not be worried and have all of the confusion and emotional upset of all of the others around you. You'll have your own place. It's peaceful, it's quiet, it's serene. And when you're ready to go, you've worked through what you've got to work through. There's always the light there. You can just step into it when you're ready to do that. It's your choice. Um, I also, when I, oh, never mind. I was going to say something about removing attachments, but I don't think it applies to this. But I generally, and that's why I say to go to the safe place. When you're working with that many, I mean, there were thousands of the COVID people when I was moving them. And even this first enslaved group, there were thousands of people that had been enslaved. Um,
Now, in these thousands, are they more full souls, or would you find them to be more fragmented souls, only parts of the soul remaining?
they were more fragmented.
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah, because I know with the COVID, what I was told is because they've already made that agreement, that contract to pass with this illness, that quite often the souls transition without any problem because they're angels, guides, everyone's standing
Mhm.
by to be of assistance. But we also understand through free will that they have the
Mhm.
right to choose, and sometimes will fragment. There's a part of them that will hold on to the physical
Mhm.
life. So usually I don't see the full soul staying behind. Quite often, most times it's
Mhm.
fragmented because of
Yes.
whatever part of them can't release. People don't realize a soul isn't a solid form. There's many parts to the soul and many bodies of the soul. So knowing that only a fragment of the soul only stays behind knows kind of gives us a little reassurance to say, okay, most of the soul has already
Mhm.
gone, but we're here to pick up the stragglers, the
Mhm.
parts of the souls that just not ready to move on.
Yes. And I've actually I've asked them if you have any questions. If you're really not ready to go, you don't want to go to the safe place, you don't want to cross over, you may stay behind and we'll talk. That's only happened maybe 3 times that I've had some fragmented soul do that. Um,
Now, if they stay behind and they want to talk, do you allow them in your house? Do you have a room? Do you have a waiting stone? Do you have something for them to kind of bide their time until they're ready to go?
I usually talk to them during that same session after I move everybody over. But yes, yes, I do. When I first started doing this work, we were hearing footsteps in our bedroom. We have hardwood floors, but you could hear the creak of the wood. So I knew spirits were walking around. And at that point, I was then clearing out of my own house once a week, twice a week sometimes. And I have a crystal that I've asked them to go just stay there, go into the crystal and stay there until I'm ready to move everybody over again.
Mm.
Unless it was a particularly troublesome spirit, then I would just move them right over. But if they were just kind of waiting, which most of them were just they knew I was doing this work, and so they would come to my house. So
Mm.
yes, I was asking them to just go into the crystal and
Right.
stay there it really helped. And it was somebody in your class that was asking about that I kind of picked up on it. Otherwise, they were just kind of roaming around, but it was driving my cats nuts. So had to do something.
Now, has anybody ever asked you to come over to their house to maybe clear spirits out?
I've had many people ask me to do that. I haven't specifically gone to their house. I've done it long distance, and cleared houses that way. But yes, but I haven't gone to the house. I've only done my daughter's house when I was there way back many years ago.
And I know really people ask, they're like, well, how do I know I have a ghost in my house?
Well, in her case, well, a lot of times it's just me watching my cats. I mean, they're looking off, or, just kind of crazy.
We got one.
I don't have doors slamming and things like that. But my daughter did. She had doors closing and dishes coming out of the cupboards and all sorts of things.
Wow.
But she's the only one that I've known that's done that. I mean, had that happen in their house that I've done anything with.
Poltergeist is very rare.
Yeah.
A lot less rare than people think. That's why when I see all these videos of things moving around in the house, I'm like, well, spirits in the light move objects quite a bit, especially when they want to be known. Earthbound spirits, believe it or not, they don't have the necessary skills or the know-how to move all these objects around through psychokinesis of energy thought, transferring that energy to an object and moving it around. On the other side, they have all the skills and all the knowing to be able to do that, but don't want to because it's a very heavy object moving into a physical space. So poltergeists are actually very rare, which is why I think it's kind of interesting to see all these videos of all these poltergeists. But that's interesting. That's why I'm kind of like debunk. You look for the energy. You don't look for the physical phenomenon that you see with your physical eye to be able to see if a ghost is there.
Yes. And there is one, I've had some experience with my nephew who passed over, well, it'll be a year, August 28th. We've heard his voice even. He's at the house. He has crossed over. At least I feel like he's crossed over, but yet his spirit is so strong in the house. She set up motion detector cameras. And it goes off every night when she's sleeping, or the dishwasher will turn on, or lights will turn on. But we've even heard his voice twice.
Right.
He's spoken to her, and that kind of, I don't know whether he's just a really old soul that he can do that, or I've never seen that before.
Usually
personally.
Emotional attachment to the house or the people living in the house. You have more love projecting from your heart. You're able to control and stimulate energy a little bit more. But a lot of people forget that spirits in the light, they're here with us just as much as earthbound spirits are. Just because you go to the light doesn't mean you pack your bags and you never come back. They're here all around us all the time. The only difference is they want to give something to us, such as love and support and guidance, where the earthbound spirits want to take something. They need from us. So that's really the only difference. Maybe hostility from time to time. Spirits are around us all the time.
They are. They had just finished building the house, almost completely finished when he died of COVID. So that's and so in love, the two of them. So yeah, he's there for a lot out of love, and she knows that, and she welcomes him. It's nice to see.
And I find that usually when they have such a connection to their family, even if they do transition, they find their way back often.
Yes.
And it's not a bad thing, because you hear a lot of mediums, and I don't mean to say anything bad, but a lot of mediums out there will say you can't call them in all the time because you're holding them back from their journey. I'm like, well, first, you can't do anything against their will.
Right.
And second, calling them in just means you're calling a fragment of them in, a piece of them in. It doesn't take them all, like the whole soul back to you, where it takes them out of their mission, their job, their learning. souls are able to spread their energy around, so it's okay. It's only when it becomes hurtful for the person who's in mourning where they're not able to move past this.
Right.
And it could be damaging, but I don't want people thinking, oh, I can't call my son in to talk with me because I might be hurting him on the other side. And that's really just not true. And I don't
Yeah.
want people to think that they can't call to their loved ones in spirit, because they're constantly around you all the time. And, talk to them as if they're right there with you all the time. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with it to be able to do it. And they don't have to be earthbound to be sitting right there next to you.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, it's nice to see, and it makes my sister and his fiance feel so much better to know that he's close. So I applaud that it's happening. It's great. It's
Well,
helpful for them.
I think you've had some really amazing experiences in your career, and I know you were obviously born with this gift,
Mhm.
and I know you were chosen to do this work because of your beautiful heart and your talent, gifts
Mhm.
that you have. And I do hope you continue doing this work. I know you're working with me right now as we're
Mhm.
creating the online certification course for rescue mediumship. And you will be one of the administrators and hopefully a great
Mhm.
contact for people to connect to. But outside of that, how can people reach you if they have questions or want to reach out to you for services?
But they can reach me. They can generally either send me a text. Um,
You're brave.
that's usually, or an email is generally what I get, or a text. I mean, that's fine. Um, Now, do I give my phone number and email, or is that
Well, we
something?
can put your email on the recording for people to
Okay,
connect you. Let's hold off
that's
on
enough.
that phone
It's
number,
probably enough.
just because I have a feeling they'll be ringing off the hook if we do. I want to give you a little bit of peace.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I was becoming overwhelmed at one point. Had so much work to do. But yes, I know that this is my purpose in life, and I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I love doing it. I'm not afraid at all. I've seen some pretty gruesome things coming out of people, um, whether it's a multidimensional, slugs, worms, you name it, bugs of all kinds. And the ETs can be really gross. But one thing I've found about the ETs is they do not want to come out easily.
No.
Because when I find an attachment with someone and I've scanned them, I find it, I say, I know you're there. I say, we know you're there,
Mm.
because they can see the spirit with me. So I give them a choice. And I said, God is an ever loving God, and he gives each of us a choice. It's free will. You've taken this person's free will. It's against God's universal law to enter a person. You cannot do this. But God, being the loving God that he is, we are going to give you a choice.
Mm.
And you can either step out of this body on your own, or you'll be forcibly removed. But it's your choice. Say, I'll count to 3. And when I get to 1, when I start 1, I want you to start stepping out. By the time I get to 3, you better be out, because if not, you're going to be taken out. But I said, again, it's up to you. I'm just kind of very calmly,
Mm.
but yet explain to them what's going to happen.
Right.
Um, but I don't give them that much choice. That they got to come out no matter what. So that's just the way I put it to them. So I start counting 1. If I don't see them starting to come out, time we hit 3, then I ask that my warriors go in and pull them out. So that's what I generally do, unless somebody is really damaging somebody. I don't kind of do that. I just say, you need to come out.
Mm.
And I don't count to 3. I just say, you need to step out now. If not, then you'll be forcibly removed, but it's your choice.
Wow.
So it kind of depends on what the situation is.
Right.
But I have found that extraterrestrials never come out on their own. They've always got to be taken out. At least that's been my experience.
Mm.
So once they're taken out, I'll speak to him, ask him, what are you doing here? How long have you been here? Why did you come to this person? Even the extraterrestrials will tell me, but they're not always nice about it, but they'll tell me. And then once they've been removed, I'll send my spiritual healers in to begin to heal the physical body if any damage was done by that attachment, to heal it for their highest and best, and remove any residual gunk that might be in there. And also make sure the chakras are spinning in the right direction, that they're all clear, and
those portals.
that's right, and clearing out their auric field as well. So that I kind of feel by doing that the best chance I can give a person to at least get back to normal.
Right. Well, thank goodness for the work that you do, because I know we definitely need more people like you in this world.
Well, thanks to you, we're getting more, so that's great. Thank you.
I'm hoping, and I'll continue the fight. So thank you so much for having, being here on the show, and, letting us know all your experiences, because I know this isn't always the easiest thing to talk about. You can't really talk about it in the regular world. Like, hey,
No.
guess what I do? It's not easy. But
many times my friend will call me and say, I can't talk to this about anybody else. He said, I know.
Get that a lot. This is gonna sound crazy. I'm like, good, let's talk about it. I like
Yeah.
crazy. I'm used to it.
Baby, yes, we are. Definitely used to it.
Well, thank you again. I'm just so blessed to have you here, and looking forward to possibly having you again on in the future when we have some more stories to tell.
I've got a lot of stories, so yes, that's fine.
We can
Thank you.
introduce the new online program again when it's finally ready, because I know it takes a while to get it done, but we
Yeah.
can be on to promote that program once it becomes available, so we can get other rescue mediums out there.
Yes. That sounds wonderful.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, and thank you for all of you for coming today and watching this. I hope you did learn a little bit, and Brenda had some amazing stories to tell. Please reach out to Brenda if you do request any of her services, and it should be a very interesting interview for the next one as well. So we look forward to seeing you again. Have a great day.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you.